About it, I'll be talking about it. Dennis Prager here. Join me this morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Sorry, I was still trying to diagram that polygamist who cheated on herself with a polygamist who had briefly become a monogamist and now needs a chatbot divorce attorney. All right, let's put that on the side right now. Finish that work up later.
Are you going to postpone your wedding to yourself now?
I don't know if I can go the distance with myself. It's shaking my confidence. There's no question, that story. Also shaking my confidence for a long time now has been the IRS, and I will continue to amplify this story because so few other outlets have. And then how important is this? People targeted by the IRS, their possessions, their financial independence threatened for their religious and political beliefs. That's what was happening at the IRS during the Obama administration under Commissioner John Koskinen. And we've talked about this show for all of Trump's almost 10 months in office. Why is John Koskinen still there? Why is nothing happening at the IRS? And Peter Roskam was one of those in the House who was beating that same drum, both for a replacement to John Koskinen, as well as for a Department of Justice look at Koskinen, Lois Lerner, who pled the fifth before House committees for justice in this case, frankly. And did we get it? For more on this conversation, for more on this issue, we'll have a conversation with Congressman Peter Roskam, who joins us now. Peter, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, guys. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
So Koskinen is gone. Trump finally made the move there. He'll be out in a couple of weeks. And the Department of Justice announced this settlement with some 400 conservative groups that were improperly handled by the IRS as it pertains to applying and obtaining tax-exempt status. And the IRS issued an apology that was revealed in the court documents for their mismanagement of the process with respect to those groups. Do we have justice in this case?
No, we don't have justice. I think the problem is threefold. Number one, John Koskinen is leaving because his term is up. So it's not like he was dismissed early. The second point is the duration of the justice. It took way too long for these larger cases to be reconciled. There's still a big issue on the civil asset forfeiture side of things, where it's the Justice Department that's sitting on people's money that was wrongfully taken, and the IRS has already moved and made a recommendation that money be returned that was wrongfully taken. And then finally, the Department of Justice's response to our inquiry to them, to Attorney General Sessions, was obtuse. We said, look, bring the case or work the case up against Lois Lerner. That there was a criminal referral from the House of Representatives to the Department of Justice, which was dismissed by the Obama administration. But surely the Trump administration should take this up. And the response was not responsive, number one, to all of the claims that we made. Interesting that they didn't bring up all the charges that we made. But secondly, what in the world is the Trump administration doing not bringing justice as it relates to Lois Lerner? So that's disappointing, and I think it needs to be remedied.
And as Gladstone said, justice delayed is justice denied, and it seems that minimum that's what we have in this case.
Yeah, I mean, there is some satisfaction with the notion of a public apology. We got Commissioner Koskinen to apologize in public to the victims of wrongful civil asset forfeiture. It was like birthing a calf, by the way.
Well, what?
Apology.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, when was the last time you've heard the IRS apologize to anyone?
Yeah. So here's what's interesting, Amy. I think it's the beginning of a paradigm shift. So then think about it. If one of the reasons that the IRS is powerful is they've got 70,000 pages of the Internal Revenue Code that they're able to manipulate against people. And if the code were clearer, if it were easier, if it were simpler, they would have fewer tools with which to manipulate. And that's why we've got to reform the tax code.
Well, speaking of the tax code and reforming it, you've got a budget framework passed out of both the House and the Senate, despite all of the stories of internal strife within the Republican Party that, of course, the press in D.C. and in Chicago like to amplify. So that seems to be moving forward. I know you had a bone to pick on some of the pieces of the proposal, including the elimination of the deduction for state and local taxes. And so we got the budget framework passed, but where are we on agreement for tax reform and some of those pieces of it, like the one I just mentioned?
So now the work has been ongoing, but now it's coming to a crescendo. So what you're going to see is, folks coming together. So look, I represent 6th District, which is a high tax district. And I've told people, who represent other constituencies, tax reform is not simply the redistribution of the tax liability from your district to my district. We need to make sure that tax reform brings tax relief to folks all across the country, and we've got to get a better business environment here, and we need to move business taxes, particularly those on small businesses, to a place where it's better all the way around. So I have a level of confidence that we're going to come to an agreement. And it'll be arduous. It'll be bumpy. The House, the Ways and Means will be producing something shortly. The House will make changes to it. The Senate will have their version. But I have a level of confidence this is going to get on the president's desk by the end of the year. And I think 2018 is going to be a better year from an economic point of view if we get this underlying structure in place. So let the economy just come back. It's been so stifled for so long.
I keep hearing the left saying that, it's not going to benefit the middle class. It's just going to help the rich. And what do you say to that?
I hope they keep saying that. I was teasing them on the floor yesterday because I said, look, keep driving the expectations into the ground. Just keep making those tattered old claims, the class envy nonsense that has just been so flat-footed by the political left over the past several years, and look at the plan that we lay out. Middle-income folks are going to be pleased with this, and I think the proof will be in the plan itself.
Now, interesting Weekly Standard piece on the Trump administration, another underreported story. This is on the defanging and reducing of the administrative state, finding that over the last 20 years, both Republican and Democrat administrations have averaged about 13,000 new regulations per year. So far, in nearly 10 months of the Trump administration, almost zero. Reversing some Obama-era policies and posturing on energy production. And, there was the move that House Republicans led to start unwinding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And it seems to me, sans tax reform to this point and sans Obamacare replace, that part of the reason we saw 3% GDP growth and we have such optimism in so many economic sectors, including the wealth-producing manufacturing sector, is because of this reduction, or at least holding harmless, the administrative state.
Yeah, I think that's right. And this is where I think the disposition of the Trump administration and the disposition of the president really is helpful. So to put it another way, can you imagine being in a bureaucracy or being a Trump political appointee in a bureaucracy, and you've got to propose through the White House and all those mechanisms some new regulation that is proposing to take some level of freedom away? Good luck. You're just swimming upstream, and I think this is where the president would be saying, you've got to be kidding me. Get that thing out of here. I'm not signing that regulation. So I think it's a disposition that's helpful, and I think the proof is that they have done a good job of blocking the administrative state, as you characterize it, as moving forward and taking more power.
Now, you mentioned your district is a high-tax district. That's because you live in a high-tax state called Illinois, and that's where the 6th Congressional District of Illinois is located. I wonder where you are these days on Governor Rauner as he announces his re-election bid with his Peter Fonda impersonation earlier this week. And, amid Republicans in the veto session this week, you as a former state legislator, very familiar with this, frankly, bolting on Rauner across a range of issues. He seems to be sort of a man without a country, including within his own party. and what should be done about Governor Rauner?
Look, he's really struggling right now. There's no doubt about it. And I think it was jarring, his approach as it relates to House Bill 40. Not only the commitments that he made, but this is a very, very deep departure from not just the core of the party, but it's an issue that deeply resonates with me, with you, with many of your listeners, and with a lot of people across the state. That is the notion of paying for abortions at any time for any reason. And this is, in a state that cannot care for those with developmental disabilities and other things. So it is really jarring. I think he's on his heels. And, Henry Hyde, the author of the Hyde Amendment, was my predecessor. And I think that there was, I think the governor was just too cavalier, in my view, in being very dismissive of a lot of concerns of a lot of people. So it's not surprising to me that he finds himself in some level of isolation right now.
And does that mean that you're weighing your options in terms of support for his reelection, or are you supportive?
Well, no, I'm interested in seeing who's on the ballot, and I'm interested in seeing does this run to fruition. So there's a long way to go before the 2018 election, but I'm very, very concerned about the direction.
So hypothetically speaking, what if Jeannie Ives was in the primary battle with Governor Rauner? Would you support her or Governor Rauner?
Well, Jeannie's my state rep, and she's a good friend, and I think she's got to do some things in order to be in a position to do that. So I'm not going to speculate on who to support and what to support. I'm waiting to see who's able to gather the support that they can be a good candidate moving forward.
All right. He is Congressman Peter Roskam, representative from Illinois' 6th Congressional District. Peter, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And he joins us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening